We're starting today's deep dive with a number that, frankly, should make you sit up 4 trillion euros.
Yeah.
That's the staggering debt pile carried by France, a nation we've long seen as this indispensable pillar of the Eurozone's economy, second only to Germany.
And what's really crucial to understand here is, well, it's not just another story about big national debts. Lots of countries have those.
Right.
This is about the Eurozone's second largest economy. We're talking nearly 20% of the entire bloc,
Yeah.
reaching a point of pretty serious political paralysis while its debt is soaring over 110% of its GDP.
Wow.
The instability in Paris, it really threatens to spill over. It demands a kind of global reevaluation of risk, I think.
Exactly. So our mission today is to quickly unpack the history here, the roots of this financial crisis, how the political deadlock basically prevents any real fix, and importantly, why this macro instability is forcing governments even across the Atlantic to rapidly shift focus and capital towards immediate, non-negotiable security measures.
Yeah, let's maybe unpack how France even got here.
Mhm.
I mean, for decades, the whole French identity was built on this idea of one of the world's most generous welfare states.
Absolutely. We think comprehensive healthcare, free university, robust pensions, all designed to guarantee a really high standard of living.
And that model, it worked for a time, especially when demographics were, let's say, more favorable.
But here's the core financial story, really, of the last 50 years or so. Since 1974, France has consistently spent more than it earned. That's, 51 straight years of deficits?
51 years. They paid for that generosity with debt. Simple as that.
Initially, that debt wasn't seen as a huge issue, was it? It was funding growth. The workforce was young.
Right, exactly. But the core promise started to fracture. Think about this. By the 1990s, you had about 5 workers supporting every retiree.
Okay.
Fast forward just 2 decades, and that ratio plummeted to 3. The system was just aging much faster than anyone anticipated.
And the creation of the euro. Ironically, it sort of shielded them, didn't it? Protected them from the immediate consequences.
It did. Because the euro stabilized borrowing costs at historic lows, politicians could lean really heavily on cheap debt. It was easier politically than facing the chaos of cutting services or, raising the retirement age.
So it let the underlying problem fester.
It allowed it to metastasize, yeah, hiding the true fragility until the pandemic hit.
Right. COVID.
The government had to pour hundreds of billions into emergency spending. That pushed debt past that critical 110% of GDP mark. First time since World War II, France owed more than it produced in a year.
The illusion just shattered.
Completely. The illusion of sustainability just vanished.
So, okay, the illusion's gone. Where is all this money actually going? When we look at that massive public spending, France's public sector consumes, 57 cents of every euro produced?
That's right. No other developed country spends nearly that much. It's extraordinary.
And that commitment, that spending level, is why the deficit is now blowing past 6%. That's nearly double the EU's required 3% limit.
It is. But if you drill down into the budget, there's one liability that's just eating the system alive.
Let me guess. Pensions.
Pensions. Absolutely. It's the highest priority cost the state faces, bar none.
The cost is just staggering. Last year, the total price tag, you said, exceeded $350 billion.
Over $350 billion. That's 14% of the entire French economy.
Just think about that. France spends more on retired people than it spends on education, defense, and public transport combined.
Combined, yeah. And the demographics just make the math unavoidable, really. The retiree population is now 22% of the total.
Okay.
And it's projected to hit nearly 30% by 2050. That's almost 1 in 3 citizens.
1 in 3.
Plus, add to that, retirees now live, on average, 11 years longer than they did 50 years ago. The system simply wasn't designed for this kind of longevity.
And you've got this compounding problem, right? On the liability side, you have more retirees living longer. But on the asset side, the contribution side is weaker.
Exactly. Fewer people paying into the system, and those who are contributing are arguably less productive relative to their qualifications. You see studies showing nearly 1 in 4 university graduates are in jobs that don't even require their degrees.
So fewer workers, lower contributions per worker, supporting a larger, longer-living retiree population. It really is a perfect storm.
It is. And this brings us squarely to the political paralysis. I mean, every economist, every government official, they know this trajectory is unsustainable.
They must see the numbers.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
But any attempt to actually fix it guarantees political chaos. Just think back to the 2023 protests. What were they about? raising the retirement age from 62 to just 64.
Which sounds modest, right, compared to 66 in the US or 67 in Germany and Italy.
Very modest. But in France, it led to massive demonstrations.
Right.
The government had to force the bill through using a constitutional loophole.
But the political cost was immense. They lost their majority, didn't they?
Precisely. And think about this. Since 2022, France has burned through 5 prime ministers. 5.
Wow, that's incredible instability.
The cycle is just toxic. Reform gets proposed, chaos erupts, the government maybe falls or loses its power, and the structural issue just stalls. Again, it creates this massive governance vacuum.
And investors, they're not blind. They're watching this cycle, aren't they? Rising debt, government collapse, rinse, repeat.
Absolutely. For decades, France was considered, fiscally pretty pristine compared to some others. Now, that confidence is clearly eroding. Credit rating agencies have pushed France down, lowest score in modern history.
And the critical signal, the canary in the coal mine maybe, is the cost of borrowing.
That's the one to watch. It's now just as expensive for France to borrow money as it is for Italy.
Italy, a country long seen as fiscally much riskier.
Exactly. That parity, France matching Italy's borrowing cost, that is a major psychological shift in the market.
Yeah.
It tells you something significant has changed in how investors perceive French risk.
And if we look for historical parallels, the Greece analogy comes up. Is that fair? It sounds terrifying.
It's relevant, and yeah, it is terrifying. Just before the Greek crisis really exploded back in 2010, its 10-year bonds were trading around 3.3%.
And France's?
Sitting at almost the exact same level right now. If the market truly loses faith, that spiral can accelerate incredibly fast. Instantly, almost.
Which creates this too-big-to-fail dilemma, but on a scale we've never seen before.
Exactly. Greece was containable, just about. France's debt pile at $3.3 trillion. It's just too enormous for an easy bailout.
So if France tips over the edge, the Eurozone faces an impossible choice.
Pretty much. 2 options, both catastrophic. Option 1, stage an unprecedented bailout. Yeah, but that risks bankrupting the political will in places like Germany or the Netherlands, forcing fiscally tighter nations to pay for, well, what they see as reckless spending elsewhere.
Huge political backlash potential.
Massive. Option 2, refuse the bailout. But that risks the entire euro currency shattering. The single currency project could just collapse.
There's no playbook for this, is there? For an economy this size failing within the Eurozone?
No, none whatsoever. The threat is genuinely existential for the euro.
Okay, so what this really tells us then is when investors and major financial players lose that core trust in a nation's ability to govern itself fiscally, they start demanding guarantees elsewhere.
That's it.
And this is maybe why we're seeing security, sovereignty suddenly moving right to the center of global policy discussions, even across the Atlantic in the U.S.
Exactly. And let's be clear, this macro instability, this anxiety, it's not unique to Europe.
Yeah.
The U.S. is wrestling with its own staggering debt, right? Over $37 trillion now.
An unbelievable number.
And the interest payments alone are consuming 6% of GDP. That's now more than the nation spends on defense.
More than defense spending, just servicing the debt.
Just servicing the debt. And geopolitical vulnerability tends to follow financial weakness, doesn't it? Yeah. We've seen key players like China significantly reducing their holdings of U.S. treasuries, hundreds of billions of dollars less.
So when the world's major economies are viewed as fiscally unstable, the immediate reaction is secure what's absolutely non-negotiable.
Precisely. Critical infrastructure, sovereign protection, things you cannot allow to fail.
This flight from financial fragility towards tangible security, that's driving massive investment into next-gen technology then.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Governments need solutions that are guaranteed, that are mandated, and that are uniquely effective against the kinds of threats we face now.
Which brings us to firms focusing on this next-generation security tech for airports, government buildings, specifically in the U.S. market, which seems like a direct consequence of this systemic anxiety we've been talking about.
Yeah.
A prime example being Liberty Defense Holdings and its main product, Hexwave.
Right. Hexwave. It's essentially a walk-through portal. It uses advanced tech, millimeter waves, 3D imaging, AI. But the unique capability, the thing that makes it really relevant to this whole macro discussion, is its ability to detect both metallic and non-metallic weapons.
Non-metallic, so plastics, 3D printed guns, things that legacy systems might miss.
Exactly. Threats that older metal detectors are often blind to. And it does this in real time.
And efficiency is obviously a massive factor for places like airports. Friction equals chaos, right?
Absolutely. Time is money. Queues are security risks in themselves. This system, Hexwave, it scans up to 700 people per hour. And crucially, people don't need to take off jackets, empty pockets of everyday items,
Much faster, less invasive screening.
which helps the TSA meet its goals, modernize security, but also cut down operational costs, and frankly, traveler annoyance.
And this technology, it seems to have earned significant government trust. You mentioned agencies like the TSA, DHS, even Los Alamos National Lab showing interest.
Yes, and the contracts they're winning are powerful proof points of this urgent policy shift we're seeing. They demonstrate that need for unique capability.
You're talking specifically about these sole source contracts.
That's right. The TSA has awarded Liberty multiple sole source agreements, including a recent one for $4.5 million. Now, these are important because the government only grants them when it deems a company's technology uniquely capable of meeting specific, non-negotiable federal security requirements. There's essentially no substitute available that meets the need.
So it's a strong signal of confidence in the tech itself.
A very strong signal. And the potential scale here is significant. This sole source agreement is part of a wider program, the HDAIT upgrade. The TSA wants to retrofit about 1,000 body scanners nationwide.
1,000 units.
Potentially, at an estimated cost around $100,000 per unit for the upgrade component. Well, you can see the potential rollout size. It shows the urgency of replacing those older legacy systems.
But it's not just about upgrading tech, is it? There's a hard deadline pushing this too.
There is a critical driver. The TSA has mandated that by April 2026, all U.S. airports must begin comprehensive employee screening for concealed threats.
Screening the screeners and all airport staff.
Everyone working in secure areas. That necessitates rapid, efficient deployment of uniquely capable technology like Hexwave across hundreds, potentially thousands, of vital checkpoints nationwide. It's a huge logistical and technological challenge with a firm deadline.
Okay, so let's synthesize this. We started with this 4 trillion euro debt trap that seems to have paralyzed Europe's core, France specifically. And we've ended up talking about the immediate tangible needs of U.S. physical security infrastructure.
It seems like a jump, but they're deeply connected. That underlying anxiety about systemic risk, whether it's financial default in Europe or physical threats in the U.S., it forces a response.
When that macro financial stability feels questionable, resources flow immediately to securing vital functions against mandated threats, whether those threats are economic default or, a weapon getting through security.
Exactly. Instability demands resilience. The market and governments are shifting focus, maybe less on abstract growth projections, more on concrete guarantees. What we've really analyzed today is a direct consequence of political inaction on debt, manifesting as a pivot towards fiscal security investment.
So maybe here's a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on. Given this political paralysis we see in addressing core fiscal issues, not just in France, but the U.S. too, should we now maybe assume that instability is the new default, the baseline operating setting for major economies?
And if that's the case, does it mean that investing in non-negotiable, resilient defenses, whether they're financial firewalls to prevent contagion or advanced physical security systems like Hexwave, is maybe the only truly viable long-term strategy left? For governments, for investors, for all of us, what really stands out to you in this profound shift of priorities we're witnessing?